having great partners is just key to everything. I love the historic properties. I love keeping that architecture where it's not cookie cutter homes. Sometimes I'm obsessed with real estate, right? So like there's old saying like obsession will be talent, right? I'm not talented at anything, but I'm obsessed with real estate, right? So I always come out, and try to look for something new and do something great. And we all go to bed at night knowing that everybody's trying to do the best for each other. And every time I try to do something where I think like like I have some input, I remind myself that I can barely dress myself in the morning. Yeah, my daughter is like my whole life. So anybody who knows me knows that like I talk about her, I get emotional because I love her so much, right? And now every decision is like for her future, right? People think it's like, you trying to go to the gym at 2:30 to be cool? No, I'm trying to go to the gym at 2:30 so that I get everything done so I can be there when she wakes up, see her every single day, and then go about my day.
Good morning, RWorld. Welcome back to another episode of RWorld Talk. We've got with us this morning Renny with Renny Realty. We're going to talk a little bit about what Gus has been doing, his background, and really what sets him apart from the pack. Gus, you're a serial entrepreneur, developer, broker, all in one. We just talked briefly off camera about all the different licenses that you have. You don't just play in the market, you actually build it. So we're going to talk about that today and sort of what sets you apart from the crowd. Why don't you give us a little bit about, well, first off, welcome. And thank you for being with
having
us.
me. Appreciate it.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, entrepreneurship, development, brokerage. I mean, you've got all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, I've tried them all. So, I'm not scared to ever throw a fishing line in the water.
Okay.
And I just like to see what happens. And I've been successful in some things and I've miserably failed in others, but that comes with the territory.
Okay.
So, I just like to do it. I just love it. I love the game.
So what's been your favorite piece of the puzzle so far with all the things that you've thrown your head into?
Fatherhood,
Fatherhood.
for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah. Love being a girl dad. It's
Okay.
the greatest build I've ever done.
Amazing, amazing. So you were an agent, you are an agent, you're a broker, but you've sort of gone into the development world. So how do you think that thinking like a builder has really changed things for you?
So I try to like model all of my homes to like how I'd want to live and how I've seen people buy homes and what like checks their boxes. So it makes it a little easier to know what people want and what they're buying. And of course, things change with whoever's coming to the area on what they need. Now with the massive influx of people from New York, all of a sudden a garage is like, it's a must have.
Right.
Where before it wasn't really, living in like the El Cid and Southland Park area of West Palm Beach, but now it is. So just seeing those trends and staying on top of it, kind of gives you a little bit more of an advantage. Being able to talk to some of the powerful brokers that are in the area and agents that are in the area and seeing what people want is a good way to build.
So what is it that you're building? Why don't you tell us your typical home? Well, I'm guessing that you don't build typical homes, so everything is going to be pretty custom. But what sort of homes are you building? Are we talking about single family ranch style, or are we talking about big old mansions?
So not big old mansions, but we build, usually around 5,000 square feet. I like to do all the stuff that people don't want to do.
Okay.
So I stay in the historic area.
Okay.
I love the historic properties. I love keeping that architecture where it's not cookie cutter homes.
Okay.
Um,
I'm down in Broward County. 5,000 square feet is a big old mansion.
okay. Okay. But yeah, so I've done some good ground ups, but I like to do the renovations where we save the original and do some additions.
Okay.
And then, I just don't want to be like a builder grade home. I go a little above and beyond. I'm blessed to have great partners that run my health company and run my treatment centers. And I do real estate for us. So we all stay in our lane and it's like, it all kind of works out, and, we just don't cut corners. My name on it is most important. I usually sell homes in the neighborhood that I live. So people see my wife, people see my daughter, and I don't want any problems. Right.
Right.
So,
You don't want somebody knocking on your door saying, "Hey, the baseboard just fell off."
so I make sure that they all know that when I build a house and I sell it, I'm not gone. You can come back to me if anything's a problem. I do this thing where if they move in and scratch a wall or dent a wall, I'll fix it. I want them to get into that house the way that they bought it, and I want them to be comfortable from day one. That's
Okay.
the goal.
So what are some trends that you're seeing right now as far as what are people asking you for? What is it that you're putting in homes? Is it higher end appliances? Is it higher end flooring? I mean, what is it that people are really looking for these days?
Yeah, I've seen the flex room is really important. right? Like having that, like for in one of my houses, like the fifth bedroom slash flex room where you can make it a Pilates studio or a kids playroom or a theater or something like that is pretty important. And then of course the main living areas like the kitchen that everybody can kind of huddle around, the nice island.
Yeah.
And then the big thing for me is also vantage point, right? Like the view from the home. Can you stand in your kitchen, cook, and look outside and watch your kids play? Or does the whole home have to stop? Right.
Right.
Like in a lot of my homes, I put the office in a certain area where if there's a mom or a dad that's working from home, the whole house doesn't have to stop because dad's on the phone or mom's on the phone, right? So I think of things like that that can keep the house flowing when things are still getting accomplished.
Gotcha. So, why do you think, you've got some pretty broad business experience? You just mentioned a bunch of things that you're involved in, but do you think that having your hand in so many cookie jars, it really sort of makes you a sharper operator when it comes to your other businesses, as far as building homes and how has that really shaped your path?
Yeah, I mean, it does because sometimes I'm obsessed with real estate, right? So like there's old saying like obsession will beat talent, right? I'm not talented at anything, but I'm obsessed with real estate, right? So I always come out, and try to look for something new and do something great. And I have a wonderful core team. My interior designer is Seneca Moss Reynolds, SMR. She's fantastic. A couple of great builders in the area that build for me that do fantastic jobs. And I look at it like from their side too. Like I know they're in a business, right? And I know that like some of my other businesses look at things the same way. And like I said, having great partners is just key to everything, right? You don't want everyone to be in that like horrible partnership thing where, people think like you just said off camera, like maybe somebody's stealing money from you or doing something nefarious behind your back. Like
Sure.
I live every day drama free, very stress free, and that's the way I run my businesses. I just don't want to. I want to have fun doing it.
So, do you find that having multiple business partners that you're working with, that it's easy for you guys to sort of stick to the plan? I mean, who's really the brain behind the operation that says this is the way that we're going to build and this is what this house is going to look like? Do you guys have little powwows and get together and decide what that's going to look like, or are you just running the show when it comes to real estate and say
No,
this is the way that it's going to be?
I don't run any show. My avenue is real estate and real estate development for our organization. I have a wonderful partner, Rudy Rice, who runs our health organization, and what he says goes. And Dan Metz does our treatment centers, and he's like the king, and he does what he does, and we all go to bed at night knowing that everybody's trying to do the best for each other.
Okay.
So we stay out of each other's way. But Rudy might be like, "Hey, man, that door might look better blue." And I'll take that into consideration and we'll have a discussion on maybe why it shouldn't or why it should be, and we'll always look at like the best scenario for everything.
No blue doors. Let the designer decide those
Yes.
things.
Yeah, that's a great. I've learned that lesson. My designer is boss for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I've walked into not to knock anybody who's got a blue kitchen, but I've walked into some homes and the guy that I knew bought a house that had like a bright blue lacquered kitchen. I said, "Do you know that you're probably not going to, this is not going to be the last house you ever buy, and how hard it is going to me, how hard it's going to be for me to have to sell this like neon
Yes,
blue
sir.
electrified
Yes, sir. I've been there.
lacquered
I've
kitchen."
been there. And every time I try to do something where I think like you know, like I have something input, I remind myself that I can barely dress myself in the morning and that like Seneca will get it all to come together. Right.
Okay. Excellent. Let's talk about 309 Graman Drive. You had a huge sale there, really sort of set the benchmark for the block. Why don't you tell us about that? Because things like that are not just luck.
Yeah, super. So, it was super lucky. I was able to buy a parcel that I was able to subdivide. And I said that I wanted to bring the 300 block into the mix. Earlier in my career, it was always, nobody wants to be, everybody wants to be east of Olive, right? And I was like, but why? That limits growth. So, now they're bringing up great restaurants, great shops to Dixie. So why not expand that to the houses to Dixie? So I told everybody I wanted, this is like 2 years ago. I said I want to bring a five to the west of Olive.
Okay.
And I got a couple of your crazies and whatever, you're gonna overbuild and this stuff and everything, but I wanted it. And I started with 317 Graman, as like a little like, you know, stencil of what I wanted to do. And then I built that and I said, okay, this is how I can improve it. So when I was lucky enough to be able to build a ground up in the historic neighborhood, I was like, I'm gonna nail it with everything. Like great garage, great rooms, great everything. And we did it. And I got lucky enough to have a great buyer that saw the value, that saw the craftsmanship, that showed the hard work that was put into it. And I achieved that. And we sold it for 5,050,000, and they're super happy. And they still call me for stuff, to make it their own. And I work with them. And it's just great because it's a win-win for everybody.
$5 million sale west of Olive.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you controlled that entire thing from the ground up, land, ground up build. Why don't you tell us sort of how it's different when one person is really controlling every piece of the process? It's not like you've got, the realtor here and the builder here. And why don't you tell us about that process and sort of how being vertically integrated really changed the decisions?
Yeah, so that was one of the few houses that I actually bought, built, and sold myself. I don't sell many homes as a transactional agent, but this one I did. I was fortunate enough, and you know, being vertically integrated gives me a lot of leeway, right? Where I can bring in some of my subs that I know and know that they're going to do a great job. My interior designer, like I said, is great, and just having that symmetry and getting on those calls and being able to discuss, why we're doing what we're doing and how the puzzle is going to come together, it really helps out rather than, hiring some third party sub that you don't know just because you got the best price, and you can
Right.
increase your ROI and you don't really know how it's going to turn out. Everybody knows how I work, and everybody knows how we each work. So there are days where I might get a couple FUs from the designer or the builder, and we leave end every day happy and friends. But like sometimes we got to like dig our heels in and make it happen. And that's in life. That's with all my partners. Like I go to meetings with my partners, and Rudy will tell me that I'm an idiot and that I'm not doing anything. And that might be his feeling for the day. But at the end of the day, I know it. I know he loves me, right? And I know that we're gonna do good things together.
So, talking about that, I mean, doing a $5 million sale on the west side, you didn't just sell a house. I mean, you really changed the landscape of an entire neighborhood by being able to put a product like that out, to find a buyer, sell that house. I mean, now you've got a comp, and now nobody can say that you can't get $5 million on the west side of Olive. I mean, that really sort of changed the game for everyone. So why do you think that matters beyond just that one transaction?
Well, I think that I think people now are not scared to buy west of Olive, right? Between Olive and Dixie, right? So that's number one. And two, it opens up like the map of being able to like procure these properties that might have been, falling apart or something just because people didn't want to put the dollars into it and didn't think they can get the ROI out of it if they bought it and developed it and what they were going to sell it for. So I think that that sale kind of like just put a whole new area in play, right? And there are guys like Mr. Cunahan who builds nice product that's getting a good number for his homes as well. And I think that camaraderie is great, and we kind of stay out of each other's way, right? All of us developers kind of just stay out of each other's way. We all want the biggest, best deal, yes, of course, but like I've never heard anything bad spoken about me. I will never talk bad about some other developer. I mean, everybody's putting their best product out, and I just think that it's just good for the neighborhoods. I think that expansion is great.
Well, you just changed the face of that whole neighborhood by putting that sale in there. You just created a whole bunch of extra inventory for yourself that
Yeah, and we created
now you know
value
you
for
can
other
do it.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we're talking about how agents are sort of reacting to that market, or the market right now, developers have to predict sort of 18, 24 months in advance on you're going to go and break ground. What's the market going to be looking like 2 years from now when you're actually ready with that product
Yes,
and,
sir.
and ready to unload it? So, how do you evaluate a deal? I mean, you're buying a rundown historic home and you're going to turn it into a $5 million product. How do you know what the market's going to look like 24? I mean, what's the thought process that you're going through in order to say, okay, I'm confident enough to break ground and put all this money behind this project because I know that 18, 24 months from now, I'm going to be able to sell it for X amount of dollars and hit that ROI that I'm looking for.
Yeah, you don't. Right? I mean, I'd like to give you some great educational answer, but
That
you
is the
just don't.
perfect answer, though. You really don't.
You
You have
don't.
no idea.
Look, I'm fortunate enough. We use most of our own money for this, so I don't put anybody's money at risk. And I know that it is a risk, and I just build it to the best that I can, and I build it with what I think families need. I always mimic my family on like where we congregate mostly and how we use our home. And I just put out the best product I can, and that's it. And then I think people just see that.
But as far as the evaluation process goes, I mean, where are your thoughts going when are you using an algorithm? Are you
Yeah.
using a simple spreadsheet? I mean, what goes into sort of pricing that? And
Yeah, I'll back into it, from like using a very conservative number as my exit, and then I'll factor in, okay, I'm going to build this at a, 500 foot level, which means, certain criteria where you have certain appliances, certain countertops, certain custom vanities or whatever. And then that trickles down into what do I need to buy this property for? Now, I tend to try not to buy properties that are already on the MLS because typically those people selling the homes, there's sentimental attachment. They hear what's happening in the market. They think their house is worth that,
yeah,
So I
my
go,
neighbor sold 2 years ago for
yes.
100,000 more.
If I hear one more time that I sold a house for 5 million, say the house next door is worth 5 million, is it's crazy. But I think education is the key. I think that, look, my whole life I've done in all my businesses, successes and failures. I've tried to get the problem and a solution, right? The problem from homeowners now is that delta, right? You ask somebody, hey, are you interested in you selling the house? And they say, yeah, I would sell it, but where am I going to go? Or I don't have the money to float both, right? I don't have the money to sell this house, wait to sell this house to buy this house. And then what do I do in that delta? Am I going to rent? What am I going to do? So, I don't want to say I solved it, but I kind of use that to my advantage. And I'll go to people and I'll say, look, I'll buy your home. I'll give you $1 million. You can stay in that home for 3, 4, 5, 6 months for free. Make a powerful, educated, and informed decision on where you're going to go next. I'll help in that process if you allow me, or I'll give you some good people that can help you in that process. But that's the goal. The goal is to make the seller comfortable and educated on what they really have, not what they think they have, right? Tell them what it's going to turn into, what it's going to take to turn into that, and then give them that flexibility to get into something that's hopefully better for their life and their families, right? More comfortable, maybe easier to operate, maybe
Sure.
less taxes or whatever. But it doesn't give them that pressure of, I got to get out. If we close on May 12th, I'm gonna get out of this house. And then what am I gonna do? And then I gotta find, like, we eliminate all of that in our company. I make sure that everybody has a seamless transition, and I do it as easily as possible.
Why don't you tell us about a time that you got it wrong?
Oh my God. It's a whole nother podcast. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten stuck on deals in real estate. I've gotten stuck on deals with some of the infomercial products I've done. I mean, one that I got wrong in real estate was I overbuilt in an area that I thought was going to come up, and I wanted to be the pioneer of it. And what happened was I sold it. I had a decent number for it, but then the one next door that I did, it was a little too nice, a little too big, and by the time it sold, there were others that made this one old. So it's timing, right? I
Right.
mean, by the time I built that, there were other brand new ones coming that this one had already been almost built, and I kind of broke even on it, right? I mean, and
Hey,
then
break
same thing.
even's not bad in this business.
It's not, but it's not what we strive for, right? But I
Yeah.
still put out a good product, and that family is still my friend, and they live in that home, and they love it. But yeah, I missed that one. So, listen, ups and downs, right?
Yeah, you never know. It's all about timing.
If it was easy, everybody would do it.
So you had mentioned being a girl dad when we started. That was your biggest accomplishment. So
It is.
behind the every project that we have, there's a reason that's got nothing to do with square footage. So why don't you expand on that a little bit more? Why don't you tell us about being a girl dad and,
Yeah.
and sort of why you do what you do?
Yeah. My daughter is like my whole life. So anybody who knows me knows that, like, I talk about her, I get emotional because I love her so much, right? And now every decision is like for her future, right? Like, will this help her be a better person? Will this show her what hard work can get done? Like all these little lessons that I teach her
Right.
along the way and that she loves. She comes to the project site.
Really?
Oh man, you got to see her.
How old is she?
She just turned 10 a couple days ago,
Okay.
and she'll
Happy
walk in.
birthday if you're listening.
Thank you, thank you. And she'll walk into the funniest story was we walked in, and I've always taught her that she said, why don't you put the fake grass in between the stones in the driveway? It looks so nice. And I told her you can't put turf in the front yard in West Palm. She'll walk up to a site and be like, can't put turf in the front because they had the turf rolled out to cut it for the backyard.
Yeah.
Just to remind them that you can't put turf in the front yard, you know?
That's awesome.
And she loves that. And I have a great cruise that she'll come in and say she wants a room purple. And I had this one painter who painted the whole room purple overnight when it wasn't even going to be purple,
Okay.
just to bring her in and show her like, yeah, here it is. Here's in purple, you know? And she was smart as to say, yeah, purple in a room is probably not going to sell, Dad. So you might want to put that back to like white or something.
Yeah.
So she loves it.
Hurry up and pant before
She
the
gets-
designer
she-
sees.
She gets into everything. I have pictures of her in front of houses, all my houses, and I bring her to showings and stuff. And it's a good bond that we have. And we talk about it and just life lessons, you know? So now everything I do is for her. Every single decision, every single action, waking up in the morning at 2:30 every morning. People think it's like, you trying to go to the gym at 2:30 to be cool? No, I'm trying to go to the gym at 2:30 so that I get everything done so I can be there when she wakes up, see her every single day, and then go about my day. That's why I do it.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah, it's well, yeah, I could feel the love. It's certainly sort of changing the way that you do things, change your standards, holding yourself to a higher standard to be a good role model for her.
Yeah, it affects the way I act, the way I speak, the way I treat others, like everything. It's made me a much better person in
Well,
my
the
life.
kids are always watching.
Yeah, I used to be like that guy that would be like, you know, if a plane was delayed, I'd run up to the counter and be like, "What's going on?" to the person who has no control over it,
Right.
you know? And now it's just like, okay, man, it'll be what it'll be,
Yeah.
you know? And I want to set that standard for my daughter, so I always watch what I'm doing and think about, you know, what's going to happen, what the implications of my actions are going to be for her, not for myself, but for her.
Excellent. That's incredible. So we'll get to, I got two more questions for you. If you could tell every agent in South Florida one thing about what is coming to this market in the next 2 years, what would it be?
Growth. I mean, tremendous amounts of growth. You know, a lot of people that are from the outside, they look in, they're like, okay, West Palm's going to be a bubble, or, you know, Miami's going to be a bubble. You know, they go back to that 2008 when everything was crashing and they said, oh, it was a bubble that popped. You know, it wasn't. It was the mortgage
Bad luck.
programs. Yeah, it was the mortgage programs. It was a lot of the international buyers, things like that. Now, this isn't a bubble. I mean, you go down to this building department, you look at future permits, and you guys all know this. It's all over the place, right? You got Vanderbilt, Cleveland Clinic. You got Mr. Ross, who's I don't even know what to call him. I mean, he is just the GOAT, right? So he's doing all these things. And I go back to one speech that he gave that said, I wouldn't be building this much and this fast if they weren't coming. And this is a guy who basically rebuilt New York, right? And he's got that forethought of like bringing people here and they're going to come and they all have to live somewhere and all areas, right? 5 million, 1 million, you know, all that level of people. So there's a lot of growth in a lot of markets. So you might not be the Sabras or the Sam Currys or the Gary Porras selling these, you know, 50, 60, $70 million houses. But listen, man, the $3, $4, $5 million houses, there's more of those people.
Yeah.
And they still need somewhere to live. And you got to give them somewhere nice to live. So there's a plethora of houses and condos that are coming out on the market that are just going to keep this city growing. And we just we have a great state.
Even smaller condos for the kids that are coming down to go to Vanderbilt when it's ready.
100%. So there's a guy that the guy that developed like Nora and stuff like that. Like they were doing affordable housing. This guy Nick that does a lot of it, like, you know, affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I'm not talking like you walk in and you get like these like slummy apartments. They're really, really nice. And they work with tax incentives and the land purchase and how they do the whole deal.
Workforce housing.
Yeah, the workforce housing, and it's important. And infrastructure is important. And I think that West Palm is doing a great job with infrastructure, being able to move people maybe not to the main areas, but to the outskirts, but still have the ability to get to where work is.
Right.
Is important.
Right. Are you a native Floridian?
I am not a native Floridian.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
Okay.
Moved down here in '96 to renovate a hotel in Miami with my family.
Okay.
And it was my first time on a plane. It was my first time out of New York.
Okay.
I come from very, low class, no money, no nothing. So it was a stretch for me to come down here. And then I remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, there's no snow, there's no leaves, there's no nothing. Like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I just stayed and I loved it. And my uncle, who taught me everything in real estate, my uncle Bobby, so shout out to him. He taught me everything. I mean, I was basically on his coattails for everything. And he had a very unique style of teaching me to work. And it was, okay, you're going to work from 7 in the morning till midnight and then go to sleep and then wake up at 7 in the morning, work, go to midnight. And I never had a break and I hated it then, but I love it now.
Taught you the discipline you needed.
Yeah.
Last question for you, even though you're not a native Floridian, obviously you've been here since 1996, as you just said. So if you could pick one South Florida gem that you absolutely love, something that you love living about, it's something that you love about living in South Florida, whether it be a local restaurant, a beach spot, a park, a bar, someplace that you'd love to go and hang out with your daughter, what would be your South Florida gem you could share?
My South Florida gem is my backyard.
Okay.
Yeah. I built out
Everybody, we're going over to Gus's backyard.
You're welcome. I built out so growing up, I didn't have a lot. So I always used to have to rely on going to, other places and using some of the more well-off family stuff. So I built my house where now it's the place to be for the neighborhood kids. And
Awesome.
I can control that. And my daughter's in a safe environment. And I put everything there that everybody needs, and everybody on my block or the blocks, around us, all the families know that they can come and use my basketball court, right? Like they don't have to even ask,
Okay.
So I'll come outside and there'll be 3 or 4 kids shooting hoops, right? Or, or on my Ninja Warrior course or playing pool outside. Something that everybody likes is that it's open and it's safe and they know that they can go into the refrigerator and take a drink. And that makes me happy because it's kind of like paying it forward because a lot of people help me get where I am, a lot. And I do a lot of stuff for a lot of people. I do a lot of charity work undercover. I don't really put it out there, but that's the kind of stuff that makes me happy. Being able to pay it forward because of where I came from, the people that helped me and believed in me to get me where I am. So, that's just the biggest benefit.
Well, now that you said that, shout out your favorite charity.
Autism Speaks.
Okay.
Autism Speaks. I have friends and a family member that struggle with that, and they do great work. We've sponsored some walks. I built a sign language app that we'll be launching in a couple of months that will help with that, with communications and stuff.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I'm glad that I went there and asked you that question. All right, guys, you give to Autism Speaks, and you'll get an invite over to Gus's backyard.
Let's do it.
I'll play you guys in pool, and I guarantee I'm going to kick your butt. So, all right, Gus, thank you so much for being with us. I'll let you
sir.
get back to work. Thank you guys for listening, tuning in every Friday morning right here to RWorld Talk.